Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to a new video. Welcome. I'm very excited for today's video. I have a recommendations video for you guys. As you can see, I'm going to be giving you recommendations for tropes that you guys have requested me give recommendations for. So I asked on my Instagram story. Honestly, I don't know how long ago it's been, but you guys gave me a lot of good tropes. I think I have a few for each trope that you've given me. So if you like one of the tropes, I have a few recommendations to give. So I hope at least one of you gets one recommendation from this video. It's going to be a long one. I'm going to be talking a lot. I have a lot of recommendations, and I will say that some of these books have multiple tropes in them, so I'm going to be recommending them multiple times. So it may get a little repetitive, but if you like one trope, or if you like more than one trope, you'll like that said book. You know what I mean? I did this video sometime last year and I didn't have that big of a selection of books. I feel like now I've read a lot more since then and I have a lot more recommendations for you guys. I will say again, make it repetitive, but I have some good recs that I'm very excited to give you guys. Our first trope rec is groveling. I have a few for this one, obviously. The first one is Ghosted by J.M. Darhauer. This is one of my more recent 5-star reads. Obsessed with this book, obsessed with the story. It's about this woman who works in a grocery store. She's a single parent. She's like working paycheck to paycheck. And then this guy who is a very, very famous actor. He plays like a superhero role in a movie. Think like Marvel movie. Like he plays the biggest superhero in a movie, like celebrity. And back in the day, back in high school, they met and they like kind of ran away to pursue his dream, and then something happened and it's been years since they've seen each other, and he just keeps coming back to her and keeps asking for her forgiveness and saying he'll do anything to make things right. You know, it's time to make things right, and he keeps coming back, and she basically says like he has to prove himself again to come back into her and her child's life. So you get a lot of groveling and it's really, really, really good. Then I have Serenading Heartbreak by Ella Field. This is a romance about a main character who has kind of like this romantic connection with this guy who's her brother's best friend, but she's going off to college and he is not. He's staying back with her brother to kind of start their band going and like going on tours and stuff and get their band going. So she goes away to college and then she meets someone else at college who is a baseball player. He is very the opposite of her first love. So it's kind of like a love triangle, but the first love keeps coming back into her life and keeps saying that they're meant to be and keeps coming back and keeps asking for her to be his, and it's a lot of groveling on his part. And then I have The Mistake from the Off-Campus series. This is the second book. John Logan, who something happens, he has an encounter with the main girl character, who is Grace. They leave for the summer and come back, and she's no longer a freshman, but John Logan wants to be with her, and she says it's not that easy. So she makes him do things, literally grovel for him, makes him a list of things to do, like he's on a roll and he has to do things to prove to her that he's not just trying to look for a fling or whatever. And it's really fun to go along with this one because you see him literally doing the craziest things to be with her. Then the next trope is small town. I have a bunch for this one. We're gonna go really quick into it. I'm not gonna give too much of a synopsis, but like main part just to show you guys that it's small town. So first is Archer's Voice. This is about Bree, who leaves her town and comes to this small town just to get a break from everything, and then she meets Archer, who lives in the small town. I'm gonna be talking about these books a lot, so I don't want to give too much detail into the synopsis except for what the trope is. Rock Bottom Girl, there's a lot of Lucy Score in this trope that I'm gonna give. I guess she likes the small town, but this is about this woman who comes back home to her hometown, and she gets a job as a high school soccer coach and gym teacher at her high school she used to go to. And then the love interest is Jake, who she used to be not friends with, but she used to know in high school. They were in the same graduating class. They had a thing that happened, and he's now the track coach at that school. So she comes back to the small town and now they're working together. Another Lucy Score is Forever Never. I loved this setting. The small town was just so fun to read about because it takes place in Mackinac Island. It's this small island, but off season in the winter, it's just this winter wonderland. Like they can't drive cars, they take snowmobiles around or horses. Like it's such a fun setting, such a fun small town setting. It's also about this main character who comes back to Mackinac Island, which is her hometown, because something happened, and she comes back with like a broken arm and everything, and it's like this whole mystery little subplot in here. The main character Brick and her used to know each other back in the day. He was older and she used to date his younger brother, and he's kind of trying to figure out what happened to her, why she's back. She swore off this town and said she was never coming back. And then we have Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. This is a pretty popular one, but the second one is coming out very, very soon. It might be out when this video comes out, but this is about Naomi, who gets a call from her sister on her wedding night, and runaway bride leaves to help her sister. But when she gets to the small town her sister's in, she's no longer there. She runs into like this cafe, and everyone doesn't like her because her twin sister that lives there, no one likes cancer. And then Knox comes in and starts yelling at her because he thinks it's her sister, but it's not, and then she has nowhere to stay, so he kind of helps her out. And also her twin sister leaves her daughter there for Naomi to take care of. Naomi's never met her niece, so it's a whole journey, but it takes place in the small town of Knockemout, I think Virginia, something like that. But the small town's really fun. I love small town trope because you get all of the townspeople in it, which is really, really cute. Then I have Part of Your World. This is about a woman who's on her way home from a funeral, and her car kind of something happens, so she's off the side of the road, and this guy helps her out of it, and she ends up staying in the small town for a few hours, goes to the bar, meets with him. It's like a one-night thing. He is 10 years younger than him. It's age gap, and she lives in this big city. She's a doctor, and she's part of a whole legacy of doctors. Like, she's next up to be like the biggest one, but she keeps coming back to him for the weekends, staying at the small town. He owns like a little ranch thing next to his house, a bed and breakfast, which is a really cute setting. This small town is so cute in this one. And then these two, It Happened One Summer and Hook, Line, and Sinker. This is the second one. This is the first one. This is about Piper, who's LA socialite. Like, she is, think Schitt's Creek. This is based off of Schitt's Creek. Think of Alexis from Schitt's Creek. But she goes to stay at this town that her father used to live in, and that's where Brendan is. And right off the bat, they don't get along. Brendan is very broody. She is rich girl, whatever. So he's like, why is she here? She does not belong here. And it takes place in this really, 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 really cute town, Westport, and it is like a fisherman town. Like, he is a fisherman type thing, and the setting is so good. And then the second book is about Piper's sister Hannah and Brandon's best friend Fox. So next one we have is fake dating. So we have The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is one of my favorite fake dating tropes like ever. I think she did such a good job, because I feel like sometimes in fake dating they say they're fake dating, but like it doesn't feel fake dating. Like, I like when they don't know each other and then they have to fake date. I don't know why I'm giving you my opinions. You didn't ask. This is about Olive, who is trying to prove to her friend that she doesn't like the boy that she was with, her ex-boyfriend, whatever. So she kisses the first person she sees, which is Dr. Carlson. She is like a graduate at some science school, and he's a professor there, but not her professor. So she kisses him, and he's caught off guard. He's very broody. He hates everyone. He's just like mean to everyone. But they strike up a deal to fake date to prove to her friend. And the fake dating in here is just so good. I loved Dr. Carlson. Then we have The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. This is another one of my absolute favorite fake dating tropes. Like, this book also is just one of my favorites. When fake dating is done right, it's so good. But this is about a girl who's actually part of a security team, like a protective, no, I want to say princess protection program because that's the first thing that comes to my head, but no, protection program. So she is put on the job of protecting this actor who's a really famous actor, but he has a stalker. So she needs to protect him and just like be like kind of like a bodyguard. The bodyguard, but they have to stay at his mom's place, which is like in this little, like on a ranch by itself, but the mom is sick, so they don't want to scare her or frighten her that he needs like a bodyguard essentially. So they end up fake dating in front of her, and it is so good. It's so good. And then we have the Addicted series. If you haven't read this, this is the Addicted series, and then there's a spin-off with Lily, the main character's sisters. But for the Addicted, it's about Lily and Lo. Lily is a sex addict, Lo is an alcoholic, and they are childhood friends, and they are fake dating in front of their families, who are family friends, like they're always together, but they're fake dating in front of their families to enable their addictions with each other. They live together. It's like this whole thing. And then we have The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This is the first book in the off-campus series. This is about Garrett, who strikes up a deal with Hannah because he needs better grades in this class so she can tutor him, and then she likes this other guy that Garrett is friends with, so he says, okay, I'll help you out. So they end up fake dating each other, but they're helping each other out, pretending to date or whatever, and then things happen, obviously. Next trope is found family. This is one of my favorite tropes when it's done well as well, when characters just feel like a family. So the Addicted series is my favorite found family, one of my favorites. But this is about, like I said, Lily and Lo, and then you have Lily's sisters, Rose and Daisy, are part of it, and then you have two other characters, Connor and Reich. And then as you keep reading the series, you get to know them more, and they're all in the same scenes together. They would do anything for each other, all of them. Like, it's such a strong found family, and they literally end up feeling like real people, like characters that just feel real with each other, and I love it. Then we have Six of Crows. This one is actually a fantasy. It's one of my favorite books ever, but the found family in here is so good. It's basically about this guy, Kaz, who is like the leader of this kind of gang group in the fantasy world, and he is put on this heist to do something, but he has to get a team together. So he gets these different people from different parts of like the world. They all have different character traits. They're all so different, but they all have something that they give to the team for this heist. And once you get into the story and into their personalities and into their characters, when they're all bantering with each other and then talking to each other, it is so good. I am obsessed with the characters in this book. Once you get into like the thick of it and like towards the end, it's just like, it's so good. The found family in here, because they're all just so different, but when they come together, it's so good. And then I have Akatar, another fantasy, obviously. Honestly, I feel like the found family aspect of it gets further further into the series, but obviously you have to start with the first one. But this is about Feyre, who kills a wolf in the woods, and it ends up being one of the Fey whatever that she killed. So she is taken to the Fey world, she is immortal, and things happen from there. That's basically the essence of it. But as you keep going in the series, you get into the found family, and it's so good because you feel like you know the characters. That's like my favorite part of found family. The next trope that we have is enemies to lovers by a thread by Lucy Score. This is my favorite. Enemies to lovers, the banter in here will have you literally kicking your feet and giggling. It is literally so good. The main character Allie has like 3 jobs. She's working paycheck to paycheck. She's working at a pizza shop that Dom and his mother go in for lunch, and right off the bat, as soon as Dom walks in, him and Allie are fighting. And then as that goes on, he gets her fired from the pizza job, and then his mom is the CEO of a really famous magazine company in New York, so she gives her a job, and now they are working together, and the tension, the banter, the enemies, it is so good. Darling Venom, I don't have this one with me, but this is one of my favorite books ever. It's like more than a romance, but it's so good. The enemies to lovers in here it's so good. This is about Kellen and Charlie. They meet when they're in high school on the top of the roof of the school, and they make a vow to each other that once a year on the same date they're gonna meet there just to check up on each other, and then they kind of like have like a little bit of feelings, but they're also like best friends, like this whole thing going on. And then one year something happens to Kellen, and then it fast forwards years in the future when Charlie's older, she has a job, and she bumps into Kellen's brother Tate, who Kellen used to tell her stories about. Now they have like this bond with each other because they both have like memories and know Kellen. Right off the bat, they're enemies, and it's so good. One of my favorite books ever. And then I have How to Love Your Neighbor by Sophie Sullivan. This is part of a series about the brothers. I don't know if this is the second or the third, but they're companion novels. You don't have to read them. I didn't read them in order, but I read this one, and it was so good. This is about Grace, who moves into her grandma's beach house, and she's an interior designer, so she's really excited to renovate it, but she doesn't have a lot of money, so it's like hard to do that. But then next door is Noah, who's a real estate agent, and he tells her like, I want to buy your property, I want to build on it, so I'm gonna give you this much money. And it's a lot of money, and you would think that Grace would say yes, but she doesn't. Right off the bat, he's mad at her. They're enemies. She's fighting with him, but it's really good. The enemies doesn't last too long, but it lasts enough that you get the enemies to lovers, but it's not like unrealistic. I don't know, it's really good. Then I have Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This is a YA romance, but it's basically about Liz, who's obsessed with like a romance fairy tale, and that's what she wants with her love life. Like that's what she's looking for. So she likes this guy, but she doesn't know him, she doesn't know how to talk to him. So her neighbor Wes, who she's known forever, they are like neighbor enemies, but they've known each other forever, so they're like frenemies in a way. He knows the guy that she likes, so she asks him to help her out, you know, get her in with him, and he tries to help her, but they are definitely enemies, and it's really cute though. Then I have Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. I honestly just finished this. It's a trilogy, 3, not 2, it's a trilogy. The romance isn't heavy in this, it's definitely more heavy on the fantasy and like a mystery between all of it, but when the romance is there, it's so good. But they do start off as enemies. The subplot is romance is so good. Basically it's about Amelia, whose sister ends up murdered, so she's on like this witch hunt. Funny that I say that because she is a witch. She's on this witch hunt to find who the murderer is, and with her witch spells and stuff, she summons one of the princes of hell, who is Wrath. He's one of the 7 sins of hell. All of his brothers are also characters in the book, which is really fun. It's like Pride, Envy, all of them. She summons Wrath, and now he's on like this chase with her to figure out what happened to her sister. It's so good. The last one I just read is my favorite of all 3. And then I have It Happened One Summer. This was the small town that I talked about, and then the rich Piper comes to the small town of Westport, and he is there, and it's like his town. He knows all about it. It's like small towns, everyone knows each other, and he's like, she is just shaking up the town, and it's not what they need. They're very different, personalities clash, but it is so good. The next trope is forced proximity. So the first one I have is The Roughest Draft. This is about 2 authors who wrote a really popular novel back in the day, and they wrote it in this house in Florida together. Something happened, they haven't talked in a while, and in their contract they have 1 more book to write. So they are forced to go back to this house where they've written their other books and find a new book to write about. Forced proximity, the tension in the air, you can literally feel it. And it's interesting because they kind of communicate through their writing about how they feel about each other, because they're in like this whole argument. And then we have Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. This is part of the Billionaire Dreamland series. Dreamland Billionaire series. This is the second one. The whole series is about 3 brothers. This one's a Declan story, and in order to get his grandfather's whatever he left over for Declan in the will, he has to be married. He marries his, I think she's his assistant. I'm honestly not like 100% sure. Something like that. They've known each other for a while, so he's like, we can just do it. She's like, okay. way, but the forced proximity is that to make it believable, she ends up moving in with him, so they are living in the same house, they're always together, they have to go to these like places together to show face. Lots of forced proximity. And then I have The Bodyguard, again by Catherine Center. Like I said before, she ends up having to fake date him in his parents' house, like in this small little ranch, but it's all that's there. They are forced to like be in the same room, the same house, do like the same things together. They're like forced to be together, and it's so good. I'm serious, you guys need to read this if you haven't read it yet. The next trope is college campus. I have the Off-Campus series by L. Kennedy. I don't know where the fourth one went. I literally just had it, but I don't know where it went. But there's 4 of them. This is about 4 hockey college players all living in the same house. They are roommates, and each 4 of the books is their romance story. What's really interesting is after the first one, you go into the second one and you get the couple from the first one and the second one, and like so on. You get all these characters in each one, which is really, really fun to read about because you get little glimpses of them in each one, but then you have the focus of each story. And the hockey in it is really fun. The college setting is really fun. And then I have Gothicon. This is college campus setting, but this is about the main character who you have to get a letter, like an invitation to go to this college campus, and she gets one. She doesn't know why, but she ends up going. And it's a very eerie campus. This is a dark academia type of romance, but she goes to the campus. It's very eerie. It's very dark. She meets her roommate, and then she goes to her classes, and then she meets her professor, and then she starts having this like secret thing with her professor. She's curious about him. It's not like a huge age gap like professor student, but they're very close in age. She's like older when she goes to school, but there's like secrets that are involved. It's like a little mystery going on. It's very interesting, and the campus is very, very interesting too. A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime. This is by Monica Murphy. This takes place at a prep school, so this is like a rich campus. It's a really fun setting, but it's about Crew Lancaster, whose family owns the Lancaster Prep, and so he is kind of like top dog there, and he has this thing for Ren. She is very shy, she's innocent, and he has this thing for her. I think they end up doing like a project together or something for one of their classes, so they're kind of like talking and forced to do stuff together. But the college campus in this is really fun because it's like the prep school. Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. It's about a figure skater and a captain of his hockey team. They both skate at the same like ice skating rink, but then something happens to one of the rinks, so they are now forced to share rinks together. And then when something happened to the rink, her partner for ice skating got hurt, so now he's stepping up to help her. He's very good. He's not like a broody hockey player that you usually get in these hockey romances, but she is like by the schedule, knows what she wants, doesn't really want to stray away from that, and that kind of like a frenemies thing going on. The next trope I have, there's a lot of books that I'm going to name off. The only thing is that I put them kind of together. So I have childhood friends to lovers and second chance romance. Some of them are both tropes in one, but then some are just second chance, not childhood friends. You'll get it as I go. Okay, first one is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This is a second chance and kind of childhood friends because they met in high school, so that's like younger at least. But yeah, they met in high school. They kind of connected because they were dealing with similar things. It's definitely a deeper second chance and childhood friends. Then something happens, they stop talking, and then now it's years in the future. They're both pretty famous writers, and they meet again at a literary event, and throughout those years that they haven't been talking, they've been writing about each other in their books, which is really, really interesting. And yeah, they meet at the literary event again, they start talking again, and then they're kind of like connecting and talking about things. She's also a single mother, and the daughter in here is pretty prevalent in the story, and I really, really liked her character. So, and then I have Ghosted by J.M. Darhauer. I talked about this before. It's about the single mom who works at the grocery store, and then the guy who's a famous type of Marvel character who's very, very big celebrity. She's a single mom to their kid, and they haven't talked in years, and now he's coming back to win her back. This one is so good. The way it's written is so good. The child in here just makes the story she is so precious. Them when they were younger and how it's written as if she was writing in her journal, and you're reading her journal and what happened in her eyes, and she's writing to him. And then present day, you get him coming back to her saying like, I'm ready to be part of her life, and it's like, no, but yeah, so good. More Than Words by Mia Sheridan. This is about Callan and Jessica. They met when they were very, very young. They would meet up a few times during the week while they were really young, like literally like 11 years old. One day Callan just didn't show up, and they both came from like hard homes. So now it's years in the future, and they're in France, and Callan is now this huge composer who's very famous. He has struggles that he goes on with, and he's always with like a different woman. He just doesn't settle down, like this whole thing. And then they meet at the hotel, and he's trying to hang out with her, win her back. I guess it's kind of like groveling too, but yeah, you get their memories from back in the day, and then them now, and how things go now. Then I have my favorite book ever, I Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. I've talked about this book so many times, but if you have not been here and have not heard me rave about this book, this is a childhood friends to strangers to second chance lovers, whatever. It's about Macy and Elliot. Macy moves in next door to Elliot. They get like a weekend house by a lake, and Elliot used to kind of just hang out at that house. So now that Macy's moving in, he's just like, what do I do now? So they end up hanging out all the time. They're younger. It is so cute. They make a little library in her closet, and they're always in there. They're just like bonding. She's always like with him. It's so sweet. And then 11 years in the future, character, he comes back into her life and they haven't spoken in 11 years and he's trying to understand what happened and you're trying to understand what happened and then you figure it out. It's so good. When they are connecting when they're younger, it is so wholesome. Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino. This is one of my favorite second chance romances. This isn't really childhood because they met in college, but they were younger when they met. He goes to NYU, he's new there, and then his dorm next door is Grace. She's been there for a while, so she kind of reels him in, shows him the ropes, shows him around New York, how she lives there, and kind of helps him. But she is a musician and he's a photographer, so just those traits are just so fun. The New York City setting is so fun. Something happened and they stopped talking for a while. Now he's older, he works a job and hasn't seen her since, hasn't heard from her, doesn't follow her or anything. So he sees her on like a subway platform or something and she's on it driving away and he's like, oh my god, and he goes and tries to find her, doesn't know her number, her socials, like literally nothing. He can't find anything, but then he finds a way to do it. It's so good. Forever Never by Lucy Score. I've talked about this earlier. This is about the main character who comes back from something happening to where she's moved out of this small town and she's hurt. It's like this whole mystery, but then the main character Brick sees that she's hurt and is like needs to protect her because when they were younger he was a little older than her. They would hang out a lot because they were neighbors. He now works for her mom. It's this whole thing. Yeah, they used to have this like little thing that went on when they were younger. She's back and feelings are still there. Lotus. This is about this girl and guy who were next door neighbors and they were best friends when they were younger, but then the main character was actually stolen from their house when they were outside and she hasn't seen him in 22 years. He's been missing for 20 years and then he comes back into the picture. They found him and now he has to relearn life, relearn how to live, and he sees her again and she's helping him and their memories are coming back and it's a really interesting story. It's definitely like trigger warnings for this one, but it's definitely a more interesting second chance. Childhood friends lovers. Now we have Brother's Best Friend. The first one I have is Serenading Heartbreak. Like I said, this is that little love triangle that happened where the main character, her first love was her brother's best friend and they're in a band together. He's kind of like this little rock star, coming of age rock star. Yeah, the first love of hers is brother's best friend. The second one is a college one, but the brother's best friend keeps coming back into the picture. Then I have Say You Swear, kind of like the same story as that one. It's same essence, but definitely longer and has more things going on. But basically it's about this girl Ariana and she has this thing for her brother's best friend. They kind of have like this really close knit group. A few of her brother's friends that play football together, her and her best friend, and they're always together, but she's always had a thing for Chase and something happens between them and things are awkward now, but they're all going to college together, literally all the same college. They're playing football together, so they go away to college. Things are weird, but they're always seeing each other because they're in the same close-knit group. And she meets Noah, who is another player on the team. He is perfect book boyfriend in every way possible, but there's always Chase there, her brother's best friend, and just always in her way, and it's really good. 28 Summers by Ellen Hildebrand. This is more of an adult romance fiction book. It starts with Mallory. She's sick and she asks her son to find this guy's number, call him, tell him to come before it's too late. And then you get the flashbacks of who this guy is. He ends up being her brother's best friend, and I think it's Labor Day. I don't know which weekend it is, but the same weekend for 28 years they spend together. They do like the same things every year, but they can never really be together, and it's so good. And if you want best friends brother, I only have one for this. It's Darling Venom. Like I said, she and Kellen used to meet once a year and they became close best friends, like almost romantic, but really best friends. And then fast forward years in the future, she meets Kellen's brother and that ends up being the love interest, which is really interesting, but it's so good. Now I have Grumpy Sunshine, which I feel like is kind of the same as Enemies to Lovers. I feel like a lot of Enemies to Lovers, it's like a Grumpy Sunshine thing. So I'm gonna name off some that I've already talked about, but it's pretty good. Grumpy Sunshine, How to Love Your Neighbor. She's the sunshine interior designer. He's the grumpy real estate agent that just wants her house and she keeps saying no. And it's really good, the dynamic between these two. Marriage for One by Ella Mays. This is marriage of convenience trope, but he is extremely grumpy and she is sunshine. That is the trope I'm talking about. But basically it's about her whose uncle passes away, and in his will it says that in order for her to get the place that she lives in and continue renting it out and get this other place that she wants to make into a coffee shop, this whole thing, she has to be married, and her fiance cut things off. So he is the lawyer and he's like, I will do it if you give me the place after whenever the time is up. And she's very hesitant about it because it's like, why does this guy want to be married to me so bad? But yeah, Grumpy Sunshine here is really good too because he is like top-notch grumpy. Hot House Flower by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is part of the Addicted Calloway Sisters spin-off series. I don't want to spoil it, but I feel like at this point a lot of people already know who each book is about and who each couple ends up being, but if you don't want to know, just skip over this book. If you don't want to know who this book is about, I know some people don't like spoilers, but I feel like a lot of people already know if you haven't read it. This is about Rike and Daisy. Rike is like extremely grumpy. That's just his character. He's always dropping F-bombs, and Daisy is sunshine and rainbows, and she goes through struggles, but she doesn't show it. She always shows positivity. That's the word. But yeah, this is like extreme grumpy sunshine. Next we have best friends to lovers. So the first one is Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino. I know I said it was like a second chance lovers thing, but they are like platonic friends at first when he goes to the college. Like she's showing him around. It's like this friendship thing that grows between them, and then it turns into something more, but like not off the bat. Like off the bat they're just like platonic friends, and it's really fun to read about. People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. This is also second chance, but they were friends first. They were best friends first. They met in college as well, just like Before We Were Strangers, and they took a vacation every year together. He's very shy, she's very not, and it's very interesting, their dynamic. And something happened, they stopped talking for years, and now she got him to go on a vacation with him again. It's like, I miss my best friend, like this whole thing. They used to be such good friends. And then I have Booked on a Feeling. This is by JC Lee. This is another series that's kind of like companion novels, and this isn't the first one again. This is about two best friends who are now grown up. She's a lawyer in LA, and he still lives in their hometown in California, but a few hours away. And she takes 3 weeks off of work. She needs a break, and she goes to stay in the town that she grew up like with him, because they haven't seen each other, they don't see each other a lot, they're just like best friends forever. So she rents out this place above a bookstore. While she's there for the 3 weeks, she's gonna hang out with him, she's gonna fix up the bookstore with whoever owns it below her. Then they're like, wait, are we attracted to each other? And things happen from there. And then another one I have is Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. This is a YA romance, but basically it's about these two people. Obviously, he is a football player and she is a ballerina, and they are best friends. Something happens where she kind of reveals something, so they are now pretending to date. I guess this is like a fake dating too, but they are best friends in the beginning, and that's why they don't or can't be with each other or talk about their feelings, because they are best friends and they don't want to ruin that. Next is Right Person, Wrong Time. I'm going back to the same book, Before We Were Strangers. Again, it's like a second chance, so something happens in that long time, and it's right person, wrong time, 100%. If You Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. It's actually YA, but it's about this girl and guy who are childhood best friends. Their moms are best friends. She calls his mom aunt. Like this whole thing, they're very close, but when they're growing up and going to middle school and high school, they grow apart, get new friends, different friend groups, and they always have this connection to each other, but it's like, it's right person, wrong time. This will make you cry. And then I have Full Tilt by Emma Scott. This is like 100% right person, wrong time. This one I went into not knowing it was sad, but it is pretty sad, so stay away from it if you don't want to cry. It's about this girl who is in a little rock band, and she's down a bad path, that something happens, and she ends up passing out in her limo driver's truck, so he brings her back to his place, and things happen from there. Right person, wrong time, 100%. Grumpy Girl, Sunshine Boy. Rock Bottom Girl. This is about a woman who comes back and becomes a soccer coach at the high school, and he is a track coach, but he is like kind of like golden retriever. He's not grumpy, she's more grumpy, she's more pessimistic, and like things aren't going her way. Part of Your World. She is the older one, like I said. It's like the age gap, and he is younger. I would say that she's more grumpy than him. I feel like he's very golden retriever, just like the last book I talked about. She is more trying to figure out her life, and she doesn't want to do things, so it's more in a negative light, I feel like. But him, he's definitely more sunshine. I don't know exactly after I'm talking about it, but I feel it. It's my favorite thing to talk about. Toxic relationships. I don't know why I eat this up in books, but the first one is Tell Me Lies. This is about Lucy, who goes away to college. She's a freshman, she's ready for a new start, and she meets Steven, who's a junior, and their relationship, he is just the #1 toxic man. It's so bad, but there's also like a little mystery involved within it between Steven, and he keeps coming back, and flashbacks are happening with this incident, and he's like leading Lucy on. It's this whole thing, but it's very toxic. And then Magnolia Parks. If you want toxic for, I don't know how long this is, 400, almost 500 pages, this is your book. If you like Gossip Girl too, and Chuck and Blair is your favorite characters, this is your book. Basically, it's Gossip Girl in London, Chuck and Blair's relationship, but with their connection, but they can never be together because something happened. They used to date, Magnolia and BJ, and then something happened, and she can't trust him, so he's always finding Phil with other girls, and she's always dating other guys to put up a wall so that they can't get close, and it's a whole lot of circles and back and forth, but so good. Next is Age Gap. So the first one is Darling Venom, like I talked about. Age Gap I like in this one because it's not like in your face age gap, but it's definitely a big difference. But it's about Charlie, who's in the future now, has a job running errands for her boss, and bumps into Tate. And he's older, he's Kellen's older brother, and it's age gap, but it's not like the main focus of the story. Then I have Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. This is like mega age gap. This is about a girl who's dating this guy, but they can't live in their apartment anymore, so they move back into his father's house. The boyfriend is so bad, he's never home, he's always doing things he shouldn't be doing, never really giving the girlfriend attention or anything, so she's always just in the house by herself with his father, and they start hanging out. So that's that. I think the age gap is like 32 to 19. And then the last one I have is Confidence of Wildflowers. This is about Salem, and next door Thayer moves in. He starts like doing like fixing something in the outside of the house, and she's always running past. She goes on runs and whatever. Brings him cupcakes or something. I don't know. They meet in a very weird way. She's always seeing him. He's always seeing her because they're next door neighbors. They start talking and hanging out, I guess, but this is also a pretty big age gap. Okay, Strangers to Lovers. First one is Most of All You by Mia Sheridan. This is about a girl who works in a strip club, and this guy comes in and kind of has this immediate thing for her and always comes back for her, and not in a weird way, but he's just like, we need to like be together in a way. Very hard onto it and very aggressive. I will say after that it gets better, but something happens to her and he kind of houses her for a little, and that's when they like really connect and learn more about each other. I really like Mia Sheridan's rating. Things We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yarros. This is like 2 romances in one, but it's about this girl whose grandma passed away, but she was a very famous romance author, and they need to finish her book off. So her mom hires this author guy, and she bumps into him and is like, this is not happening. I don't know who this is. My grandma's writing is very like precious to her. So they are now working together, going through her grandma's old letters to rewrite the story that her grandma didn't finish. And then you read the letters point of view of the grandma. Then you get the grandma Strangers to Lovers. She meets this guy. It's World War II. He's a pilot, and their romance story that they are writing about. It's really interesting dynamic. And then I have The Summer of Broken Rules. This is about Meredith, whose sister passes away, but every year their family used to go to Martha's Vineyard together for like a little vacation, but they haven't done that in a few years. But her cousin is now getting married, so they end up going for the week, and it's like all of them are grieving together, but then also their family does this game of assassin where everyone gets a target water gun game through the whole week, which is really fun to read about. And she meets her cousin who's getting married, the fiance or the groom's stepbrother. Somehow he's like not related to the family. They meet and they're like gaming and scheming together, and it's fun. The Mindfuck series, so this is like a thriller romance. It's so good. There's 5 books, but they're really short if you read them all separately. Lana is a serial killer, and she is killing off these men for good reason, but she meets this guy who's an FBI agent who's on her case. It is so interesting. It is so good. I ate up this series, but yeah, they're strangers that don't know about each other like at all. It's so interesting. Workplace romance, the first one I have, I talked about already, but By a Thread by Lucy Score. This is about Dominic and Allie, and Dominic's mom gives Allie the job of working at the famous New York City fashion magazine, and she's working under Dom, but Dom can't fire her because it's the mom's orders, the CEO's orders. So Allie's doing literally whatever she wants, and they're just arguing all the time, and everyone is scared of Dom except for Allie, so everyone's like watching them fight all the time, and the workplace is so fun. And then I have The Fine Print. This is the first in the Dreamland Billionaire series by Lauren Asher, and this is about Rowan and Zara. Zara works at the big Disneyland-esque place that Rowan's family owns, and again, to get the grandfather's like will of what the grandfather left him, he has to come up with this new design of something. So Zara sends in an idea and they like it, so they're now working together, but he has feelings for her. It's this whole thing. But the workplace romance is really fun because of the setting. It's like Disney World. I just talked about this, but The Roughest Draft, there are 2 authors, like I said, that are going to write on their last novel together, but they haven't talked in a while. A lot of tension, and they're in the Florida house together. It's their workplace in this house, and they are trying to work and write the novel the whole time. The Who Did This to You, or like touch her and I'll kill you trope, one of my favorite tropes of literally all time. But this recently happened in a book I read. It's at the bottom of a big pile of books I don't want to take out, so I'll put a picture. But it's Brightside. It's not like the main point of the book, but it happened in this book, and I remember it, and I was like, wow, loved that. This is about a girl who moves away from her hometown and her best friend in San Diego to across the country, go to college, start new, meet new friends. She meets a new love interest, and something happens to her within like the storyline, and he's like, who did this to you? Oh my god, so I love that part. It's not the main point of the story, but it happens. The same in the Kingdom of the Wicked series. This is the last book I just read. It happens a lot in the 3rd book, like so much. He's like, I will literally tear down every single world for you. So good. Forever Never by Lucy Score, because like I said, she comes back home with like a broken arm, like she's in an accident, and he's very protective of her, and he's like, what happened to you? Like, I will kill whoever did this, basically. We love that. I don't know why we love it, but we do. I only have one for this trope, but Popular Girl and Shy Guy. This is All the Bright Places. This is more of a sadder story, but she is popular in high school, but something happens to her and she can no longer like connect with her friends. She doesn't really want to be with them anymore, and so she meets Finch, who is the opposite of her, very lonely, very Larry in his head, he is more of a depressed kid and he goes through struggles, but now they're both going through the same struggles, so they connect with each other and they're on this project together, so they have to hang out, and it's like this whole thing. Really interesting dynamic. The last one I have one for this one as well, but this is Famous Person. Funny you should ask. This is basically a second chance as well, but it wasn't my favorite second chance, but I liked the famous person aspect more than that trope that's in this book. It's about this journalist who did a whole thing on this famous guy back in the day, and that really started her career, and they spent a few days together and stuff has happened in those few days, so that's years in the future, and someone wants another same article on the same actor, so they put her on the task. So now she has to spend more time with him, and their memories and what happened are coming back to light. It's an interesting storyline and concept, but the second chance wasn't my favorite the way it was written. The famous person was really fun though. I liked that aspect a lot. Okay, I did just talk a lot, I know. I hope at least one of you have gotten a recommendation from this, or at least have watched this. I will take anything. I know that was a lot of recommendations, but I love giving recommendations. I feel like the more I read, the more I want to give recommendations, and I don't know, people are always asking me like, what book should I read if I like this? And I'm like, this one, this one, this one, and it's like, it's fun. Like, I've read all these books, why not share it with you guys? It's my favorite thing ever. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys got a recommendation, got something from this video. Let me know if you did. Let me know if you enjoyed. And yeah, that's all for me from today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for coming to this video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you did, and I'll see you hopefully in the next one. Bye!